Hi everyone, I'm Jada Burt and this is In My Tracks. You know that feeling when a song comes on and it's so good that it feels like you're frozen in time? Well, that's what this podcast is all about, the songs that stopped me in my tracks. I chat with musicians about their process, challenges, and inspiration. And you discover your new favorite songs. This week on In My Tracks, we're talking to Little Bird, a psychedelic indie rock band based out of Charleston, South Carolina. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to In My Tracks. I'm your host, Jada Burt, and today I'm speaking with Little Bird. Hi there, Jay and Noah. How are you?
Hey now.
Hey, good.
Thank you for being
We're
here.
excellent.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to have this conversation with you too. So before we dive into the band and everything you're doing with Little Bird, I'd love to know how your love of music began as individuals.
I always kind of just really loved the feeling music gave me, especially as a kid. My parents played their favorite songs, and I don't know, I just was always inspired by just good music. And I would play this really crappy keyboard my dad got me and just bang away at it all day trying to figure out how to play the songs. And I mean, everything from Prince to Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, all of that stuff really just created a love for music for me. And yeah, I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I just tried to teach myself how to play. Eventually, getting serious with it and studying it in college. And then I met these guys and they showed me the wonderful world of indie rock. And yeah, that's just kind of a
musical household.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a musical household too. My dad was into the golden era 90s country music, Brooks and Dunn, Alan Jackson. And then he gave me a Bad Company record and a Bachman Turner Overdrive vinyl as a kid. My mom was into Norah Jones and Sheryl Crow and all that. So I followed their genres until I was old enough to discover my own genre. So my love of music came from constantly finding something different. It's an endless chain of dimensions and worlds you can enter. And like Noah said, when we met, that definitely opened up a lot of doors. I had known who D'Angelo was, but I didn't know who Sun Ra was or how to appreciate Stevie Wonder until we came together.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like being a part of a musical household and then watching yourself grow and develop. You're not really watching until you're at this age that we're currently in, and we're like, wow, yeah, I had such great taste as a little kid and then as a teenager, a young adult. So, because you can't really beat Prince, Michael Jackson, and Stevie Wonder, and then that other side of the pocket, Sheryl Crow, Norah Jones, all of those sounds coming together. I can hear it all throughout your catalog. And so I'd love to know how you started the band and kind of found your sound.
I started the band with my good friend Jim Rubush in high school. And we did the Battle of the Bands thing. And then we put out a couple of records with a group of kids that we went to high school with. Shout out Chris Elvidge. He's doing quite well. And Mike Ware were the original members. And then when we went to college together, we had an agent or an aspiring musical agent that would book us gigs on the weekend warriors things. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and Jim was in Charleston. So through Jim's network and talent, it eventually led to finding people like Noah Jones. I remember when we first met at the warehouse, Noah Jones? From Soul Power Warehouse.
Yeah. Vaguely, yeah.
Because my grandfather played piano, and I liked watching him play. But when Noah Jones came in, he had these glasses on, he had these shades on, he had a flat top, and he was a little bit late to the rehearsal. And he hopped on them keyboards, and it just came alive. And I walked up to him afterwards. It was the first time I had seen a musician play quite at that level without appearing to have put any effort into the performance. It's just effortless. I was like, hey man, you want to play a gig with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, all right, I got a gig at the Commodore 2 weeks from now. And he's like, all right, well, I'll meet you there. And he showed up with a 1.5 octave. Is it 2 octaves on that keyboard?
It's like three, but it's very tiny. It's like
Yeah.
it's about yay big. I don't know.
So that's all he showed up with.
I was just feeling that thing for a while. It was easy to load in.
And he just improvised straight
Yeah,
up
I had no
during the
idea.
set.
I had no knowledge of the music, but I mean that night I will never forget because I mean all of those original songs were just very I connected with them and it inspired me to even start writing more. I mean, Made in the Shade, honestly, that song was what sealed the deal for me with Little Bird. Like these guys are very talented, very genuine, and I could see myself really working on something special with them.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Like I was able to see you open for stoplight observations here in Newport, Kentucky, and it was really just a great experience to be able to see such a large group of people be able to um, play in both bands and play each song as if they wrote it themselves. Could you speak more about the community that you've built, the members who have come and gone, and how you've managed to continue improving as musicians and as individuals while your band and band dynamic continue to change over the years?
Well, we definitely didn't build it. We are building on top of what has been there, and everybody being this friendly, competitive, altruistic space we're in has led to what the community that I think you saw at Newport, which is definitely super cool because I came up as a fan. Stoplight was the first band that I saw in Charleston. And I was like, man, these boys are cool. Selling Out Music Farm. But
Yeah, it's crazy how the
Noah,
world works. I went to high school here in Charleston, and I was on the student council at the time. And my senior year, our winter formal, we hired Stoplight Observations to be the band for it. And at the time, I had a band, and my band opened up for Stoplight at the
Manchild.
winter formal. Manchild, yeah, who who's the drummer at the time is now the front lead singer and bass player for another band, a sister band of Little Bird, is the Psychedelics. Um, but anyway, so they showed up. It was just Will Blackburn and John Keith, just as a duo. They showed up and they were listening to us and they were really vibing with it. And when we finished our set, Will walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, you guys sound great. Like, you guys just want to play with us, be our band?" And we just was like, "Sure, why not?" And we literally just riffed for an hour. And I mean, afterwards, we just stayed connected. And then eventually, I started college at College of Charleston, and at that time, I started playing more. And Manchild was playing at the music farm one night, and Jim Rubish was working, and he saw us play. And after our set, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, man, um, you're really good. Like, I'm in this band, Little Bird," and it started to. At that moment, I was like, "Okay, it's starting to connect." I had met Jay at that point and Oleg, our drummer, and I was like, "Yeah, man, these guys seem really cool. I'm down." So then the infamous night at the Commodore happened. Um, but but yeah, so we eventually I moved in with them, with Jim and Oleg, and we all lived in this townhouse on James Island. And lo and behold, our next door neighbor is Will Blackburn from Stoplight. And so
yeah.
over the course of 3 years, we really developed a good relationship with him. And yeah, we just kind of played when they needed us as they were going through evolutions of their band. And as of around a year and a half ago, it consistently became, some members of Little Bird were pretty consistent with Stoplight. So
A topic that comes up a lot is the fact that music just brings magical people into your life, and that story just solidified that. I mean, everything that happened was meant to happen and led you here. So I'd love to know more about the band's sound. Like, how did you find it and settle on it?
That's always in perpetual development. It has a defined flavor right now, but it's definitely Noah Jones base. Like the Noah Jones is the crust and the sauce, and I'm the cheese, and then Oleg's the meat, and then Jim is the accoutrement, perhaps uh, the jalapeno or ranch. But this comes from altruistically collaborating. I just learned that word the other day, so I'm killing the hell out of it. But the
It's a constant
that
evolution. Like
yeah,
it's I mean, Proxima was the album that like we all were trying to figure out individually who we were, and then like how we wanted to sound as a group. And for me, it was really cool to be able to work with a group of people that saw something in me and like appreciated what I had. And I mean, it all came from like this dream that I had, and it was just this random like you meet this alien woman and she's like really cool, and like she takes you on this amazing journey, and all the songs kind of tell a untold story that I was writing for a college project that I never really finished. But um I'm really thankful for all of them and you, Jay, that they brought me in and like let this let this 19-year-old kid um play some tunes and actually turn it into an album.
yeah. Like Familiar was the final. Uh, like we had 2 records before that, American Spirits and Groove. There was also a couple of tracks I made in high school before that, but Familiar was the first. Me and Jim knew how to collaborate, and we have been playing since we started. And I was good at writing songs. Jim was excellent at music. And then we meet Noah, and Noah's good at writing songs and making the music. So Familiar, the record before Proxima, which is the one that Terrible is on, um, that sound came from a, hey, will you be in our band? And now that Proxima sound came from, all right, we are a band. Like, we're not looking back, we're looking forward. Proxima next. Familiar was like retrospective, coming of age. Um, but yeah, just getting that soul, dog.
It's there. It's definitely there on Proxima. It's really cool to hear how the band has developed and the sound has developed just by inviting new members in. How would you say that you keep the dynamic positive? It can be difficult, dealing with different personality types, different levels of ego. How do you guys manage that and still keep everyone happy and wanting to contribute to the group?
We found that individually we all like have our own sound, and that's what makes Little Bird is all the pieces coming together to create this piece of work. So I think as of the last year or so, individually we've all kind of started embarking on our solos projects, and with that, I mean we all are still involved with that. So that we support the heck out of each other still, no matter what. Like there's so many side projects, and that really culminated into the idea of Mega Hot Records. And Jay, you can probably better describe Mega Hot Records.
Mega Hot Records is an international media conglomerate developing out of Charleston, South Carolina. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that serious. But it came from like, it's such a cliche story to what you touched on, like different personalities, different levels of ego. I'll be the first one to admit I am at times the most difficult to deal with because I'm just very obsessive and I have tunnel vision, but I also have extreme ADHD. So I think a mutual respect of each artistic value, and then being embracing the symbiotic nature of what everybody's strengths are, and sort of picking up where their weaknesses are is a role where as Mega Hot Records you can sort of like, it's hard to do a band thing. It's like hard to get it from ground zero to a place where it's profitable, like in touring and streaming and all this stuff. And we're all racing towards a common goal. And it seems like some people perpetually go on forever and they get bigger, they get smaller, they get happier, they get depressed. Like all these things can happen to you. So to combat falling apart as a band, to combat falling apart as a friend group, it's not that Mega Hot Records is going to be a record label where we have a studio and come in and you can record. That would be amazing. But what I really think it could be is like a platform to where everybody can have their own voice, where Little Bird can help promote Noah Jones and the Psychedelics could have touring opportunities. I guess, a way to put it is that a rising tide raises all boats, if that's how you say it. And to combat the ego and to embrace the muse and follow her into perpetual creation, which I think is what everybody's true goal is. We've just tried to remain as aware as possible as to what the most important thing for everybody is to do. So it would be great to have another record or another song from this project, but we got to give some love to this project and we got to shed some light on this, and all the while showcasing just the community around us and how involved everything is. I think that's like a good way to
No ego, we go.
Yeah,
We go.
right. Those are wonderful points. I mean, it takes a lot of work to release music. I mean, it's a job as fun as it can be at certain stages. It's also a job at the end of the day. How do you balance the responsibilities that go along with writing, recording, producing, and releasing, touring, managing a band, and your mental health?
well, mental health, I think I could maintain a little. You go insane. You go insane doing this because your value, it's like gambling. You know what I mean? Because you can have a song that does well on Spotify. You can have a great tour. But at the end of the great tour, there might not be as much money because the van broke down. And after that one song went viral, another song that you thought would go viral goes viral. And then your life gets caught up in numbers, and all these things can sort of happen to where it feels like you have too much to do. And even when you do a lot, you've done nothing. So that's a perpetual journey for me too, which is actually kind of turned into a game where I'm like, okay, how can I trick myself into everything's going great so we can just keep doing things? But the gratification of seeing something go from an idea to existing and you can hold it, or, a tour from, that'd be cool to go on tour to act. We actually, like, we met in Newport, Kentucky. Like, that's amazing. And you get these little signs. Like, I got this hat a day before Newport. I'm wearing a Newport Alive with Pleasure hat. And I showed up in Newport. I didn't know that's where we were going. So you just get signs from the muse to keep going that definitely make this like blind faith of just belief in ourselves sort of turn into actual gratification at times. So just riding the highs and lows, I guess.
Yeah, we've all kind of adopted, I think, at one point the philosophy of like the Tao in our lives. The Tao Te Ching. It's a big um just like the idea behind it, I think mainly is the idea of do without doing, and not getting caught up in, like he was saying, the streams, the ticket sales, and like just relishing in the fact that like we're in who knows where, like Newport, Kentucky, and we're playing a sick show in front of people who are genuinely appreciating what we're doing. And throughout all of the BS that comes with going out on the road and getting mistreated and disrespected and all that, like nothing compares to just being able to play our music in front of people who want to hear it. And for me, that's like that's the end all be all, you know?
And Max takes care of us too. Max, shout out to Max
Yeah.
Becker.
Shout
He
out to
he,
Max
he definitely
Becker.
keeps things down to break one thing down at a time. Like, yes, the world can be falling around you, but like maybe the best thing to do is just focus on emails today. Just focus on the flyer. Just focus on the mix. One song at a time. But we don't have control.
Yeah, really don't. As much as we would like to have all the control in the world, we have some, but not as much as we would like. So I would love to hear you speak more about the community in Charleston. I was able to see a small piece of that by seeing you open for stoplight observations. But in doing my own research, learning more about Harlem, who I was so excited to see perform that night, and Psychedelics, who I've seen, tour with Neil Francis. I would just love to hear more about how you feel like Charleston hones in their community and exactly like what makes Charleston unique, because I think other cities could do the same.
Well, I mean, my perspective is like I've lived here my whole life. I'm born and raised here, and I went to an art school here, and it's like 6th through 12th grade. And you audition and get in, and you you pick a major to audition for. And I was in band, and for me, like being able to be exposed to all kinds of people that existed, and because I went to a private school before that my whole life, and going from a very conservative, like very narrow viewed education to this truly a melting pot of culture, spiritualities, arts, like that.
It's a music town. More than
Yeah,
New Orleans, right?
I
Or
mean, most
equal.
people think jazz started in New Orleans, but technically, the first institute ever in the country for jazz music was in Charleston. It is the Jenkins Orphanage, and there's this rich culture that is really embedded here. And I think that I think as a young person to be inspired by music, like the problem with bigger cities like LA, New York, and like I don't know if I would have had the same route if I lived there. As far as like, yeah, cool, I like music, but I mean, so does everybody else, man. And it's just you're one fish in a huge ocean, you know. Whereas in Charleston, it's more like a lake, and there's a diverse population
A
and
bayou.
a bayou, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not too big, it's not too small, and the caliber of musicianship here is just as good as anywhere else. But because it's just the right size, and because there's this history here and a culture of appreciation, it's just like the right elements to yield a consistent generation of artists in our city, at least in my experience. And I know I'm thankful for it, and like to be able to go from high school and literally immediately start professionally playing and making a living from it. I don't know if I could have done that living anywhere else.
And in high school, when Jim and I went to high school, we had a couple older brothers who went to College of Charleston, and there was a college scene there. I don't know if it was more or less than another town, but all we know was that the band Long Miles was in Charleston, and we had a Long Miles CD. We had a Danger Muffin CD. We liked the Band of Horses, and we had Facebook messaged Long Miles to come open up, or let us open up for, this is back before we knew Noah. We messaged Long Miles, hey, can you guys come up to Maryland and we'll open for you and we'll pay you $1,200. So being like, they were like in college, they were just like successful in Charleston. It seems like a wild message to send, but when they came up, it was like the Beatles came in Annapolis. So James and I were like, man, we got to get to Charleston. We got to get there. And now that we're there, and, you're saying things like we are integrated in that scene, like to me that's like a tremendous honor to consider, because the spectrum of people there and the spectrum of people coming up and the history of it developing, like it might not seem like it's that crazy, but which it's not that crazy, but like it's cool to find out you're living in like such a historically rich and influential part of land that nobody really knows about that much, for nobody's really giving it the credit that's there. Like everybody loves it. We get Mo Louder to come down here. All the Atlas bands, they are like, this is paradise. What is going on? Time moves a little slower. You get a little bit more done. Stoplight, the Psychedelics, She Returns from War, the Simplicity, Wolfgang, and there's that incredible mastering engineer too. What's his name? Vlado. Vlado just mastered our last couple of singles. That man mastered Graduation. That dude, like Charleston has it going on. You just don't, it's like a vacation town for very creative and influential people. So it's cool to just run into them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can say for myself, like, after seeing you guys play here in Newport, and I did more research. I was like, what? Nobody talks about Charleston, but there is so much amazing music coming out of this city. Why don't I know more about this? So, yeah, I mean, it really is a gem. I was like, dang, I found a diamond. So, yeah, I'm so excited to see what you guys continue to do. Yeah, of course.
Harlem's amazing too, isn't she?
I love her. Yes, I was like,
she's illustrious.
I booked it to her. I was like, do you release music? I need to listen to it I need to listen to it on my way home. Yeah, she is fantastic.
We're literally working on her album late in a couple weeks.
I can't wait. So many amazing artists coming out of Charleston. And so thinking more about, Little Burt and the band, I would be wrong not to ask this, but what is the story behind your name?
It was a super embarrassing moment in high school where, no, I'm just kidding. My full name is James Henry Hurt VI. So around the house, a lot of Jameses out there, all you Jaybirds listening, I was the little J. And then I think I had just searched on Facebook. I was just like typing in band names like Facebook/this to see if it was available, because it was kind of around the time of Spotify picking up. I was still on the iTunes game, but I just thought like Little Jaybird sounds kind of lame. Little Bird, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the Facebook name was available, so yeah, it's not that original. Sometimes we got like Big Bird's Lullabies on our title page, and there's a couple other little birds out there. Thanks a lot, Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, right.
We're thinking about changing the name actually to The Final Bird.
And that's it.
Or just Bird. You got all these bird bands out there. You got Future Birds, The Birds, Birdman.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, but I mean, you got it first. I mean, if you got the Facebook name, you don't need much else. Right?
Yeah, it's locked in.
Yeah, that's it. Thinking more about your catalog and all the songs that you're continuing to release, if you could choose the first song that a new listener heard, which one would it be?
What would you pick, Noah Jones?
Right now, our song Space.
Yeah, I was going to say Space.
It's very telling of the attitude we have right now and like the energy that exists currently for all of us. It's poignant to our lives right now. And if you want to, not only it's like one of our favorite songs, but like if you want to know how we feel or how we think about the world right now and life in general, that's our energy for sure. So that's what I would recommend.
It's like a really good picture of yourself, when it's like you don't know if you're handsome or not, but like you're like, that's us. That's me. Yeah. That's the one right there.
It's our Facebook profile picture. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. for sure.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the conversation with Little Bird so far. This is the song that stopped me in my tracks. Here's Terrible by Little Bird.
Once the feeling finds you, should go outside, feel happy. Look, I just found the truth. Love from you I heard, at the mercy of your heart. Something in the world, someone in my head, I feel happy. If where we are is somewhere in the dark, let's feel happy. Well, someday true, the perfect shade of you will reach inside and find the peace of mind. So much yes I can't stand up. So much yes I can't stand up. So much yes I can't stand up. Hard to do the things I need to do to feel happy. Holding on to myself, must find a place to go outside. See, you can see in the moonlight, you can see it in the dark. What's the line? Choose between the lines, yeah. And I want you to find yourself the right way. I want you to find yourself, yeah. I want you to find yourself the right way. I want you to find yourself. I want you to find yourself the right way. I want you to find yourself. Something in the water, someone in my head, I feel happy. If where we are is somewhere in the dark, let's feel happy. Well, someday true, the perfect shade of you, reflecting inside the peace of mind. So much yes I can't stand up. So much yes I can't stand up. So much yes I can't stand. Can't stand.
All right, so I chose your song Terrible. It had such a nice groove to it. It was so easy to just keep on loop. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is the song that I would like to chat with them about. So I would love to know the story behind it. What inspired you to write this song?
Noah did the music.
I had made the music to the song I do that a lot. Like sometimes, okay, it's like either you have an idea for a song, at least for me, like I know, okay, lyrically and like phonetically, I want this idea to exist. And then there's the other side where like I literally write the entire music of the song first, and I have no idea what I want to say. And luckily, like that's why Jay and I work so well together, because he really picks up where I leave it. And we both kind of settled on this notion of like, I looked up like the word terrible. I don't know. I think I was reading a Bible verse for some reason, and like it in the passage, it was like describing God's like terrible like wrath. But and I kind of like researched
Yeah.
it, and the word was translated, from the original language, and it didn't necessarily mean like a bad thing. It just meant like terrible as in its greatness. It's so powerful and it's so intense and mighty
Like, whoa.
that
Yeah.
that it's, our language just, we immediately associate it with a negative thing, where it's not necessarily that. And that's for me where it kind of started. And I knew, because Jay had a song at the time called what, Wonderful, was that what it was called?
Yeah, it was called Wonderful.
And I was like, yeah, I kind of have this idea for a song called Terrible, and
Yeah.
Wonderful didn't make it on the album, but
And then you had that picture, and it was like, this is what depression looks like in a picture. Do you remember that picture?
Vaguely, yeah.
It was
Vaguely, I
a
do.
foggy, mountainous
Oh,
canyon.
yes, I totally do. Yeah, there was this digital artist. Man, I have to find that. But there was like a digital artist who made like um these images that described like just like mental issues, like depression, anxiety, stuff like that. And the one for depression, um it was so like captivating to me, like visually. It was like where the wild things are. It was just this giant thing, and it was just kind of terrifying, but also like beautiful at the same time, and calming. But I don't know, that image was also a big influence.
It was like Studio Ghibli meets Christopher Nolan, is what it felt like
Yeah.
when you looked
Yeah.
at it. Where the wild things are. You can prompt that, probably get it.
Yeah, we'll have to see that then. Like, it's interesting to hear that point about kind of the way the word terrible has like this meaning just in normal conversation, and then the deeper meaning of it, and how you kind of tied it into this song and also depression. So could you speak more about how you kind of like talk about your mental health through your music and even the instrumental, since that's what you wrote first?
The first thing I learned was in music class. I'll never forget it. Like the guy walking over to the piano, he was like, "This sounds happy, right?" And he plays like a major chord. And then he's like, "Oh, this sounds sad, right?" And he plays a minor chord. And I was like, "Yeah, that makes very, very much sense." Like major's happy, minor's sad, and
Mm.
and that's very black and white way to look at it. But I mean, you're teaching kids, so and literally the first chord of the song is this major chord. And I studied jazz in college, and like I have this kind of bank of a vocabulary musically that I can tap into. And I was just kind of experimenting musically with what a major, like the song's in C major technically, right? But it only really happens once in the song where the chord is played. And it's it's so hard to describe, because like I can listen to a happy song and cry my eyes out, and I can also listen to a sad song and feel truly inspired and motivated to do something, um and to me, I wanted that musically to be like the bridge between the two, where you can't necessarily say, oh, this is a happy sounding song. Oh, you can't say it's definitely sad, but it's definitely up for interpretation, I think, and that's where Jay's lyrics came in and like perfectly, for me, describes what I was trying to say musically.
Yeah. And I lyrically, a lot of those lines, like, once the feeling finds you, you should go outside and feel happy. Look who just found the truth of who you are at the mercy of your heart. That comes from mental health, like a lot of people just being left alone in the silence because we're so overstimulated these days from society or whatever. Like, if you leave yourself alone, lock yourself in the woods, you're going to go through some sort of experience, but eventually you're going to level out and you're going to see like eye to eye to the animals. And I had a couple of experiences with some substances, and I found the feelings that came from them to at times be uncomfortable, like the psychedelic experience. Everybody had taken the same thing. I'll keep the names anonymous with who was with me, but I noticed that all of the experiences were different, and I was the only one not having a good time. And everybody was like, "What do you mean, man? This is great." And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die and everybody's going to die, and none of this is real, and I'm going to go crazy. It's never going to wear off. And my buddy was like, yeah, everybody is going to die. Duh. And, this will wear off, and that's okay. So, it's choosing to not necessarily fight the feelings that you experience, but to embrace that they're supposed to happen to you, because I do believe in mental issues, and I do totally believe in, chemical imbalances and all of that. But I do think that in this era of pharmaceutical and medical and social revolution, which is great, but there is like a constant need to define something. And I think that the idea that something is wrong with you can sort of confuse that maybe you're getting a sign, or maybe you're getting some sort of intuition about something that you're choosing to ignore. And when you're put into the face of it and you force yourself to deal with it at the mercy of your heart, you find who you actually are, and pulling yourself out of it. I wanted to write something to where if you had the same experience, which tons of people do, I'm sure, you could be like, oh, I see that. But if you could also go from it as like, I never experienced it, but you still might feel it. You just might not define it the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be really easy to kind of stay in the darkness and live there for an extended period of time, sometimes even your lifetime, honestly. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. What do you do to kind of keep yourself out of that darkness, let it go in waves, and know when to pull yourself out? Like, what do you do, like maybe daily, weekly, monthly, to kind of keep yourself well while you are doing all of this work that is, like you've mentioned before, overstimulating, really time consuming, and, you have to find multiple ways to make money. Like, there's just a lot going on. So how do you keep yourself well and able to continue creating?
I say embrace the little things, like especially being on the road a lot this year and having moments of like confusion about myself and life and what I want to do and am I doing the right thing, like coming home and truly embracing like the relationships that I have with the people that I have them with, and like, literally just complimenting someone on their shoes when you walk by them, like that could mean the world to them.
Mm-hmm.
And something as simple as that, like that triggers an immense joy, for somebody. That could have made a profound difference in how they were thinking in the day, And I mean, it has, that's how I feel if someone were to do that. And if I was having a bad day, like these little things, these little interactions, these little, just like, hey, how are you? Like that means so much. And I think it's easy to forget that in this world with the craziness that goes on. But that's what I found for me is to truly embracing those little moments and those little interactions with everyone and everything, to remind myself that we are all kind of connected and in this together truly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Doesn't have to be that deep. It's all about the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. I mean, yeah, we're all connected, and it kind of does make you feel alive when just giving someone a small compliment like that, like I like your shoes, and seeing how saying something like that can just brighten up someone's day. They might go to sleep thinking about that. So yeah, I'm glad
Never
you brought
know.
that up. So thinking more about Terrible and the story behind it and how you developed the song, how would you say you've changed since releasing it? It's been a few years now. It was released back in 2021. So I'd love to know, because since you've been doing so much in the meantime, touring and releasing constantly.
I mean, I I edit a lot, and like we edit and engineer. We self-recorded that entire record, so I've heard that song a lot of times, but I haven't listened to it too many times. Actually, only like probably 3 or 4 times since we put it out. But the last time we were on tour, Max turned it on, and he was like, "Why don't you guys play this song?" And we kind of forgot why we don't. We just don't sometimes, but it's cool to look back and be proud of of the jigsaw that we made together. And
It's a part of our story.
yeah,
It's part of our story for sure. And like I had the same moment too. Like I hadn't heard the song in at least like a year and a half or so, and it truly like just brought a feeling of nostalgia and just like a snapshot of where my life was when we were writing it and when we put it out. Like it's it's crazy because to me now it like the meaning behind it changed than when I wrote it. You know what I mean? Like life has changed so much. Like going through the pandemic. I mean, going through all those riots, just like 2020 in general, and then I mean that's when we made it during that year, and then having it to release it, and then immediately go into working with other bands and developing Mega Hot Records and all that. Just like being displaced 2-3 years almost now, it's so crazy to look back on it, and but I'm so glad to have it because it truly reminds me of where we came from and where I personally came from. Because like yeah, that song it is deep. It's like musically, like when I wrote it, I was going through a lot, and it's a part of who I am, and it's easy to forget where you come from and the things you've done, and because you're life moving so fast, you're always constantly thinking about like the next thing, what you have to do, what you need to do. Whereas like you got to take a moment sometimes and reflect on what has happened. Like why are you the way you are, kind of deal.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Like, and then having this song really serve as a snapshot of that time is invaluable. And I'm glad you brought up the point of the song kind of having a new meaning now. That happens so often. So I'd love to know like what the song means to you now, like and how it has changed for you.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because like I literally was named it Terrible because Jay had a song called Wonderful, which I don't even remember how that went, but I thought it would be interesting to have two songs contrast each other on the album. And I was like, that's perfect. Like that's it's kind of like the emotion that I'm feeling when I'm writing this. So, but now it's like last time I heard it, I felt nothing but joy. Like hearing what we did and what we accomplished, it truly brought immense joy to me. And it all goes full circle because like originally when I wrote it Terrible, it's kind of an oxymoron because it's not necessarily a negative thing. But it deals with negative things people feel. And like I said, I just feel absolute joy now listening to it.
Yeah, it sounds like a party now. Especially when, I mean, I remember being nervous to ask Will Blackburn and Whit Burns. It was one of the first times I met Whit Burns to play. There's a guitar solo during the hey, 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 hey. I think it's around like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And now Whit, I'd be like, yo, what up, dude? Give him a big hug. Maybe not a big hug. He's not much of a hugger. He's more of a dapper Dan man. But looking back and remembering the terrible feeling that I had writing it, I definitely I feel good thinking about it. And that experience, I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I'm so glad that changes happened for you guys. I mean, it's been, like we've mentioned before, a crazy past few years. So to be able to have kind of that picture in time and see how you felt then when you wrote and released the song and know how you feel now, it's just a great thing to have in your back pocket. So in closing, if you could speak to your younger selves who were just starting their careers in music, what would you say?
I would say, sit down, Jay. Quit second guessing yourself. Be you. Be aware of the love you have around you. And give as much as you can back. And then give even more. Quit trying to act and look cool. You look dumb. You're already great, young buck. I'm very proud of you. Keep going.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines, I'd say the same thing. And honestly, like, I'd tell myself the patience that you have is your greatest asset. Like, I'm a naturally patient person, or at least I try to be, and it's easy to kind of forget, and become impatient. But I would tell myself just keep being patient, because I don't remember where I heard this, but it always stuck with me. It's a saying that's it'll be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it ain't the end.
It's not. Yeah.
Yep. True words haven't been spoken.
It ain't the end.
Yeah. Those are wonderful things to say to your younger selves. Things that everyone can use. I mean, being patient is pretty difficult in our current society that is run by numbers and money and all the things. So, yeah, absolutely. That's lovely. And so we spoke about Mega Hot Records throughout the interview. What else are you excited to promote?
Well, today we released a single called Be Like That and an accompanying meditation interlude called Sometimes. So we're pretty excited about that new song.
It's pretty good.
And our Sweet Happy Lifetime passes. You can pay what you want to enter, and you can win a ticket to see us perform live anytime you want. Terms apply.
That is
But
awesome.
If you're interested in winning a ticket for life, come find us, and you can pay what you want. Pay a penny. You could pay $1 million. Doesn't matter.
Let's go with $1 million. So yeah, that is awesome. Be like that sometimes. Yep. Buy your tickets, because that's a deal. That's a deal. So hopefully people are thinking like 100K if they're a little tight, and $1 million if they have it like that. So yeah, we'll definitely be listening to those songs. And where can people find you?
You can find us online at thisislittlebird.com. And if you're interested in Mega Hot Records, that is megahotrecords.com. On social media, we are at thisisLittleBird. Excluding TikTok, we are littlebird.wave. WAV, like the audio file. Noah Jones on Instagram is not Nora Jones. All the other members of the band are pretty easy to find on at Mega Hot Records. All the projects they got going on, we got a lot of cool stuff.
Awesome.
I'll be putting out an album later this year.
Mm-hmm.
My first one.
That is awesome. Super excited to hear it, and excited to continue seeing what you guys do. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Noah, for being on In My Tracks. It was a pleasure speaking with both of you and learning more about your journeys as individuals and as members of Little Bird. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to In My Tracks. The show was created and produced by me, your host and friend, Jada Burt. And shout out to Play Audio Agency for recording, editing, and producing the show, and for composing the original theme music you are currently jamming out to. Please rate, review, and follow In My Tracks everywhere you listen, including Spotify, where I curate playlists that pair with each episode. Did you hear a song that stopped you in your tracks? Share it with me. DM me on Instagram at InMyTracksPod, because music is meant to be shared. See you next time.